Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on our webinar today. I'm really happy that you're here for, I think, a really exciting and interesting topic. My name is Matthew Bailey. I'm the head writer and director of client content here at Bill Good Marketing, and I'll be your host today. This topic, I think, is such a fascinating and important one. And thinking about it made me think back to a book that Bill Good himself once had me read years and years ago called Raving Fans by an author named Ken Blanchard. And in the book, Blanchard said, customers in most industries are only satisfied because their expectations are so low and because nobody else is doing anything any better. But just having satisfied customers isn't good enough anymore. If you really want a booming business, you must create raving fans. Now, as financial advisors, you know that statement is true. Every investor in your orbit has a surfeit of options when it comes to financial services. For people to want to do business with you, you must stand out as more than just the least worst option or even the best option. You have to be the clear option. And for clients to trust you enough to refer their friends and family to you, for them to entrust you with all of their assets, both now and in the future, they have to be more than satisfied with you. They must be raving fans of your company, of your team, and most importantly, of you. But how do you turn people into raving fans? On the surface, it can seem like a daunting proposition. If you came up to me and said, Matt, here's my friend Bob, turn him into a raving fan, I wouldn't know where to start. It seems like too complex a task. But there's a quote I've always loved by Albert Einstein, who said, genius is taking the complex and making it simple. And that's why I'm so grateful for our two special guests today, because Drew and Erik Barlow are taking something that can be very complex, and they're doing something very, very ingenious because it is so simple. They've taken a classic campaign formula, they've tailored it to their own business, and they use it to drive engagement in ways that leads to easy opportunities to turn people into raving fans. And today they're going to show you how their campaign works, as well as how they approach the follow-up to the campaign to seize on those opportunities and turn that engagement into more raving fans, into more AUM. Now, some of you on here today, I see a number of you are existing clients of our system. You may be familiar with certain aspects of what Drew and Erik are doing, but you may not have done it in a long time or for all of your book. Others of you on here today may have never done anything like this before, or at least not on a systematic level. But everyone on today's call should take what they learn here today and apply it to their clients and prospects before the year is out, because it is the simplest, easiest, and most direct way, and thus the most ingenious way to turn more people into raving fans. So with that said, I'd like to introduce you to our two special guests, Drew and Erik Barlow. Drew, let's start with you. You've been on our system for a very long time, and we're so glad that we finally got you on a webinar today. So please tell us a bit about yourself, your practice, and your history with our system.
Matt, thank you so much. And to the Bill Good team, thank you for having us, Erik and I. It's an honor to participate. I'd be remiss if I didn't say we or myself was a little nervous because we want to do a good job and we haven't done this before. I'm going to take a piece of advice from a commencement speaker I saw at my other son George's graduation this weekend. And the advice was think of yourself as the guest at your own Irish wake. Everyone's there for you, but they're not expecting much out of you. I hope to be able to deliver meaningful ideas around engaging clients and increasing the way that they feel about their relationship with you and your practice and what you are doing for them and can do for them. We are in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, suburban Philadelphia. We have a broad base of client types, focus on business owners, executives, and professionals. But there's a lot of different types of clients we've been able to bless with, really, is just over the decades that we've been working together with clients. We have a lot of different clients. So we don't specialize in client types, but we do. Really, our true values proposition is pretty basic, which is specializing in combining robust planning, customized investment solutions, and exceptional client service. And if we do all three of those well, we have really experienced some pretty solid growth in our assets and revenue.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're so glad again that you're with us today. And Erik, this is your first time on webinar as well. Tell us a bit about yourself, how you got started in the industry, your role on the team. I know you had a very interesting way of getting your feet wet in this industry, and you've had a really cool path so far. So tell us a bit about yourself.
Of course, thank you, Matt. And I'm very grateful to be on the webinar today. I've been to hundreds of these where I'm, listening in. So it's cool to be part of the show. Originally, I graduated in 2020 with a BS in finance. And my first job out of college, which was right where the pandemic was working with teachers in their retirement plans. So cold walking and cold calling during a time when many people didn't really want face-to-face interaction. And the opportunity came up to join the team. And with the team now, I'm a registered client service associate and in the process of transitioning to the FA development program.
Excellent. And Drew, really quick before we move on, remind me how long you've been with Bill Good Marketing, because it's been, you are one of our most experienced gorillas, I believe.
So when I saw that picture you showed of Bill, I said, kind of remember that guy because that was circa 1986. We attended when I say we, it was my father and I, Don Barlow, attended guerrilla training in Salt Lake City of June of 1988.
Wow.
And it's, what's that, 37 years we after a week of training, we were minted a new gorilla and sent out into the jungle to prospect and grow our business. So it's been 37 years as a gorilla.
Wow, that's amazing. 37 years and 3 generations. That is so cool for us to hear. Okay, so before we dive into the topic and Drew and Erik's campaign today, just a couple of quick notes of housekeeping. First of all, if you're new to these webinars, one, we love if you have questions. So please, at any point, if you have a question, drop it in the questions box or in chat. I'll be monitoring that and I'll be feeding it to Drew and Erik as we go along. And then again, if you're new to these calls, one of the things that we always want to do is we want to say thank you for giving us an hour of your valuable time. And we do that through what we call a goodie bag. And every webinar, the goodie bag contains various resources that you can use with your practice immediately based off what you've learned here today. Today's goodie bag contains 2 really, really cool resources. The first is a special guidebook that we've written here at Bill Good Marketing called 5 Secrets to a Great Event. You'll learn a little bit more later about why that matters. And it's just packed with different best practices and tips that you can use to put on more powerful client events, which are one of the absolute best ways to get more referrals, introductions, and to ultimately grow your business. And then I think the most exciting resource we have in our goodie bag today is some of the actual campaign documentation that Drew and Erik are going to go over with you. They have very graciously shared a special letter and questionnaire that they use as part of this campaign. It's exactly as they wrote it. You can take that, customize it, and apply it to your own practice and let us know how it goes for you. So you'll be able to get both those documents at the end of this call. All we ask is that you fill out a short report card letting us know what you got from this webinar, what you'd like to learn about in the future, and then that will take you immediately to the goodie bag with these resources. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of the webinar for that. Okay, so let's dive in. I think to begin, the best way to dive into this topic and to give you some context about the campaign that Drew and Erik are going to go over with you is to first show you, I think, the bones on which their campaign is built on. And what I mean by that, I want to go back in time, actually. Drew referenced this picture you see on the screen of Bill circa 1986, because it was in 1986 when Bill had just barely debuted what he would call the Bill Good Marketing System. Now, from the beginning, the goal of the system was and always will be to help advisors double their production or work half as much. But after Bill first debuted the system, he began thinking of a way for advisors to be able to pay for the system almost immediately after purchasing it. So they could basically hit the ground running and grow, from the word go. And the result was what we still today call the Find the Money campaign. Now, some of you on here are very familiar with that campaign, but for those of you who aren't, this campaign is designed to help advisors find all of the out of house assets that their clients have that they might not know about. Now, in our experience here, a lot of advisors, they often, believe they know where everything is. But what we found time after time for almost 40 years now is that there's often 50%, even more than that, of assets out there that they don't know about and thus are not under their management. So the original variant of the campaign that Bill created was very simple. Advisors would send out a letter with an accompanying questionnaire. And the very first questionnaire Bill created asked a few simple questions. What financial products and topics are you interested in? What outside investments do you have? What funds do you have available to invest in now or in the future? And what happened is clients would fill out those questionnaires, return them, and advisors would learn there's a lot of things out there. There's a lot of funds, accounts, inheritances, money in motion that are coming due that they don't know about. And so from that very first run of that campaign all the way to today, that campaign has helped advisors find on average 10 to 15 million in new client assets they didn't know about. It's also helped advisors generate lots and lots of referrals. But as time passed, Bill realized something else. Financial advisors can run this campaign more than once. In fact, they can run it about every year if they want to, so long as they're asking for different information every single time. So we have created a different version of that campaign every single year. And over time, a lot of advisors on our system have created their own versions of the campaign, all of them themed in different ways, asking for different types of information, but all of them ultimately helping advisors be able to grow their business. Now, today, the reason I bring that up to you is because Drew and Erik are going to show you what's in essence their own version of this campaign, but taken to a whole nother level. And that campaign, Drew calls the Find the Interest campaign. And now here's where I'm going to shut up, take a step back. And Drew, I'd love for you to tell us a bit about what this campaign is, sort of the 30,000 foot view, and how you guys came up with it.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Matt. So the idea for the Find the Interest campaign starts with like, why as an advisor would I want this information, right? And I think when we think about clients and understanding what's important to them, we call the four areas that we would focus on the people, the things, the ideas, and the activities, right? The things being their accounts, their money, and that's where the Find the Money is really about find the things in their life. That naturally would segue to the people. Hey, who's important, right? My spouse, my children, family members, and other aspects of important people in their lives. And then it would go to ideas, right? Well, what do I want to achieve with my wealth? And whether it's retirement or planning for a legacy or just being able to understand, can I afford a vacation home? Or what would happen if I get frail in the future? So normal financial planning would focus on three of those areas, which is the things, people, and ideas. The other area is activities, and we realized we didn't have a lot of structure around understanding activities, and that if we could create a campaign or a process to gather in a scalable way, rather than going and asking every single client, where do you like to eat, and what do you like to wear, and what type of books do you like? We wanted to create a process that was scalable. Mm-hmm. And would also combine other aspects of branding, which we'll talk about and you'll see in the approach to how we gather the information. So the idea, the why is we really want to be able to connect with what's important to a client. And what's important to a client, we had a lot of knowledge around the things and the people and the ideas. We didn't have as much knowledge around the activities.
Mhm.
So we created this campaign to find out more about what they enjoy doing. And not only in leisure time, but some of their charitable intent. Um, and really, that's the concept behind the Find the Interest campaign.
I love that so much. It reminds me of several years ago, I had the chance to sit in on a phone call that Bill was having with an advisor, and the advisor was, was explaining how, Bill, we're just not growing. I feel like, we have clients, but we're not getting referrals. We have prospects in the pipeline, but they're not coming in. What do we do? So Bill did what he's so good at, and that's debugging a situation that's not working. And one of the questions I remember him asking is, okay, so all these clients, what do you know about them? And the advisor, told, well, I know how they're invested. I know what they want to achieve, in their life. I know what their goals are. I could tell you what their risk tolerance is. But then Bill asked, well, what about what makes them tick? What do you know about that makes them them? That individual quality that we all have that forms a part of our respective self identities. And the advisor admitted he didn't really know much, and what he did know wasn't written down, wasn't recorded, wasn't being used. And so that's where Bill started with him was we have to find out these things, and that's really what you're doing, with this campaign, as we're going to go through in just a minute. Is you're trying to find out what makes people tick that are in your orbit. What makes them them. Again, not just the things, not just the ideas, but what do they like to do? What matters to them? I think that's such a powerful way to be thinking about the clients in your book or the prospects in your pipeline.
Yes, and the campaign itself, we took a step back and said, okay, what would it look like, right? We need to understand what type of information we need to understand. How are we going to get the information? What are we going to do with it from a system perspective so that we can create a process around retrieving it? And ultimately, once we have all that in place, how are we going to use that information to drive growth in both the quality of our relationships, which is the most important aspect, and then ultimately, um, revenue or assets or referrals and just growing the practice. So that's the four areas that we'll describe in the Find the Interest campaign.
So let's dive into that. You mentioned, the first thing is figuring out what it is, that you're looking for, what it is that you need to know. So let's talk about that. What are you looking for with this campaign? You mentioned the things, people, ideas, and activities. Um, Tell us a bit about how you're finding that stuff out, what this campaign is designed to help you uncover.
All right. So the cool part is when we conceptualized this, the first place I turned was to our coach, Megan Spackman at Bill Good,
Mhm.
and said, hey, we have this idea. Do you have a template that we can build on? It's much easier to modify something than to create it, right? So she said, oh, yeah, we have a template interest questionnaire which was provided to us from Bill Good Marketing. And it was awesome because it's very close to the final product. So when we got this questionnaire, which you'll see at the end what it looks like, it had so many questions that I didn't think clients would be willing to answer. And I even wonder myself, well, why do we need to know this information? What restaurants do you like? What are your favorite restaurants? What type of food do you like to cook? What type of books do you like to read? Movies, shows, sporting events, activities. And then the next part was what type of activities would you like if we were to hold events? Which ones would you be willing or interested in participating in? Like sporting events, golfing interests, gardening, fishing. Is there anybody? The next part was: is there anyone in your world who would you like to attend? And interestingly enough, we got a lot of referrals back on this interest questionnaire of people that, yeah, please contact them, especially if you have an event. I'm sure they'd love to go. And so that's how we created the questionnaire itself, which is we modified a Bill Good Marketing interest questionnaire to what we were trying to achieve with our own campaign.
Excellent. So let's break down some of those individual things that you're looking for that you have on the questionnaire. So you mentioned you are when you're trying to find the interests, you these are some of the interests you're looking for. First of all, what is their favorite food, what is their favorite beverage, that sort of a thing. So why that? Let's break that down. Why are you looking for that information?
For two reasons. One, and the overarching thing is the why, right?
Mhm.
If it's important to our clients, then it's important to us when it comes to an activity. So we wanted a broad based questionnaire to gain as much information as we could. Um, Two is what will we do with it? Well, ultimately, this is the letter that they receive framing the questionnaire, right? Which is why we're sending it, which is saying, hey, if we know what you're interested in, then we can send you information on those topics. And equally as important, we can invite you to events that you tell us you'll be interested in. And so that in and of itself was the deliverable for the client. Now, what we knew too was once we know what their interest is, now we can do client gifting along the lines of what they're interested in. And for example, if somebody's interested in vegetarian dining, or they're interested in red wines, or they're interested in a certain type of food, when we're doing our holiday gifting, we can be more targeted as opposed to sending everybody the same thing. We can use targeted annual giving. We can also use giving around events, which is to say in their lives, whether it's, if, um, uh, important events, graduations, home, you bought new houses, or you've had children or grandchildren, things of that nature. The more information I know about their preferences, the more likely I am to send them a meaningful gift. And finally, is obvious, the events. If I know somebody's interested in a certain type of event, then I can create an event. And ultimately, in our world, a lot of these events are targeted based on how many people will be there, whether it's firm sponsored event or our own event, or we're leveraging events in the community. And we're going to know how, what type of client that we pair for certain events, and also what type of events to maybe structure and hold based on the numbers of clients that would have a common interest.
I love that because I think a lot of advisors they'll sometimes they'll know some of of these things. They'll look for one particular aspect of what a client likes or cares about, or it'll come up in conversation. But that idea of all the different ways that you can use this information, the web of possible uses they can have, I think is such an important one. Now, I want to ask you, before I do that, actually, I see we have a question coming in. This is from Zachary, who asks, when it comes to gifting, how do you manage the time it takes to do such a targeted strategy? I know we're going to talk about gifting in just a minute here, or go a little bit more in depth into that. But right off the bat, Drew, as far as gifting goes, how much time does that take? How much, or how are you managing that time within, your own model day, or what you have to do on a regular basis?
So it's a great question, right? And we never have enough time, and we never have enough bandwidth, right? So we have to optimize what's important. And what we've done is prioritized the importance of having this type of relationship and deliverable for our clients, right? So at the beginning of each day, Eric and I, and we have, our team is, there's three advisors and three service assistants, and each one will interact, the FA and their support person will interact in their daily meeting and say, literally, the typical meeting of following up on service things and meetings. But at the end, it's always, are there any opportunities for gifting and wows,
Mm.
right? So we invest time in thinking about our gifting on a daily basis. And then we have streamlined a lot of these processes so that we're not spending a lot of time if we have to give, but we're definitely dedicating time to our model day, allocating time to an important exe- executable process. And then when you come down to a campaign like this was a significant amount of time that we invested in our practice. And you'll see by the results that we got, it was time well spent. So it really it depends on whether it's a broad-based campaign where every single client in the book is getting a sophisticated package of things, which is what this is, versus just the daily gifting or maybe the annual gifting. So we definitely have to be thoughtful around what we're doing and then the time it's going to take and then build that into our model day.
Excellent. So let's talk about now how you're actually getting this information. You took a template from Bill Good Marketing, you customized it for yourself. The things you want to look for, their favorite foods and beverages, where they like to shop, activities they like spending time doing, who they like to spend time with, doing those activities. How are you actually now getting that information? We've already talked about how this is sort of based off that Find the Money campaign with a letter and questionnaire. But just because you create a letter and questionnaire doesn't mean it's always going to lead to anything. So tell us a bit about your letter and your guys' questionnaire, how you use it, and how you are actually getting this information back.
Great. Another excellent question. So the concept for creating preparing the survey was, first off, explain why we need the information. And that's what you're going to see in the letter. And it's very simple, right? It's a very clear, concise reason. Hey, we want this information because we're going to use it to send you things of value, whether it's information or events. I also took a concept, if we've ever gotten surveys in the mail where somebody puts a dollar bill in there, right?
Mhm.
You almost, the first thing you do is put the dollar bill in your back pocket. And then there's this sense of, hey, I took somebody's dollar. I kind of should fill out the questionnaire.
Right.
So we created a value, right? So we created a gift, which Eric will talk about what we actually did. But we thought, hey, it's summertime. We're gonna create a gift, and it's going to be a branded gift because we know that from a marketing perspective, if you give somebody something with your brand that they enjoy using, they're going to keep it around. And it's almost like advertising, a form of advertising. Oh, who's beyond investing? Oh, that's my financial advisor. So we paired the concept of a letter and a questionnaire with a valuable gift that people would enjoy receiving. And then there's other aspects of how we package the gift, which Eric will talk about. But it's really the concept of giving something of value to them so we can get something of value in return, which is the time it's going to take them to return that questionnaire. Because it's they have to think about, hey, what's your favorite restaurant? What kind of food do you like? Where do you like to go? And what do you like to do? If you sit down and fill that out and be thoughtful about it, it's a good 5 or 10 minutes. And so we knew that we wanted to offer value to receive value. So that's where the concept of pairing something of value, in a gift would really help the response rate. And the expectations at first was, hey, maybe you'll get a 10 or 15% response rate. And we were closer to 35%. A
Mhm.
full 1/3 of our clients sent back their questionnaire. And over the period of a year, clients would come in for the reviews and just say, oh, here's the questionnaire. They
Yeah.
held on to it. They knew they owed it to us and they brought it at a later time. So it was a very surprising response. And more importantly, the people who responded, I couldn't believe it. Like, we sent this thing to busy CEOs that we didn't necessarily have a really great, deep relationship with.
Mhm.
And they answered every single question on that questionnaire in detail, which really surprised me. Like, people really got into filling it out. So that's kind of how we got the information back.
I love that, and I want to dive into something that I noticed when scrutinizing your letter, Drew. But before we do that, since we're on the topic of how we're sending this out and the response you're getting, George asks a really good question: is this being sent as snail mail? Is it? Are you sending it as an email, or are you doing it both?
All right, talk a little bit about the deliverable and how we got this to clients and what how we got the information back.
Of course, I think that's a great question because there's a lot of forms of communication on how we can get it to people, and I think you take this letter and the questionnaire, and it took time to craft those. But then the next question is, how am I getting it to the client that's a meaningful experience? So, the name of our practice is Beyond Investing. So, going past just the investing aspect and doing more for clients. And I took a step back because, myself, I'm a sneakerhead. I enjoy buying shoes for myself, and I always think, that experience you get when you get a package, you open it from you get it from FedEx, you open it up. There's a letter from the CEO saying, "Hey, we're really happy you chose us." And then right there, I already knew what I was getting, but I already feel better.
Right.
So thinking about the experience of when our clients get this, they open up the box, we send it via FedEx, and we put, what we did was we got custom boxes. So you'll see in this picture here, we got a Beyond Investing box through a company that had our logo on it. And, once the client opens up this box, they see, a couple of Yetis, and we did take some time and make sure, hey, we know the wife likes to, drink wine or they like seltzers. So we had a lot of thought into what type of Yeti each client received because we had, 6 or 7 different types.
Mhm.
And like I said, you get that handwritten note saying, hey, we hope you have a great summer. So it's not, hey, please fill out this questionnaire. It's we just want them to have a good summer and have some goodies with it. And you'll see the questionnaire in there, and then the letter was there as well. And then it kind of explained what that next step is. And I think that alone allowed our clients to feel more part of our experience and really wanted to answer these questions, which are about their world and their activities.
I love that. That is such an incredible idea, Eric. To yeah, take that experience we all can relate to of just opening a box, the tactile feeling of what's inside here. Opening it up, taking it out, seeing what's. It's just such a new and interesting diversion from the everyday, right? So taking that tactile experience, combining it with trying to find out what your clients are interested in, that's a really unique approach, and I think a really cool one. But I think in addition to that box, though, there's something about the letter that I want to highlight that I think is another reason why you've gotten such a good response rate, Drew and Erik. So you guys who are on this call, you'll be able to inspect this letter at your leisure later on. But just very briefly, one of the things that they're doing with it is it starts out by talking about all the different ways that we are trying to help you, the reader, all the different ways that we care about you and that we're trying to add value, like Drew mentioned. And then it talks about how we are in an uncertain time. There's a lot of market volatility going on. It's our job to continue being proactive at updating your plan, understanding what's going on with you and how we can best help you. And only then does it pivot to, we also want to learn more about your interests and the activities that you enjoy, the things that you do in your spare time, so we can get to know you better. And I think that structure of that letter is really key, because when people get a letter from their financial advisor, they're expecting it to be about financial matters. The letter does meet that expectation. They're expecting their advisor is constantly looking to add value. The letter explains how they're doing that. And then it's getting into, oh, my advisor really wants to learn, more about me personally. They're already now primed to be feeling really good about you guys, Drew and Erik, and all the things that you're doing for them, because the letter has primed them to feel that way. So all those factors, I think, are a pretty integral part of why this letter and this questionnaire has gotten such a good response. it's the box is a huge part of it, but I think the way your letter is structured and what you're covering in it is really key as well. So when you guys get this and you're customizing it, keep that in mind. Maintain that structure in your letter, because it really is key. It's an important part of why people want to send back this questionnaire and give you this kind of information. So with that said, it's one thing to get information about your clients. It's another thing entirely to be able to record it and be able to use it, because I think a lot of advisors, they may know some of these things, but it's in their head. And if it's in their head, it's staying in a dusty attic, in their mind, where it's not going to get used very often, or nobody else in the team is going to be aware of it. So, Drew, I know this is a big part of what, you do as a veteran gorilla. Talk a bit about the next phase of this campaign, how you are storing and then retrieving this information you're learning.
Right. Another great question, because it really comes from the genesis of what Bill Good himself has defined as the law, right? The law, as it's stated, is every client or contact or attempted contact should be entered into the database of your CRM system. And that's the basis for a CRM, where the interactions are entered, right? And there's a lot of benefits to having that happen. And then that can translate into task management. And then ultimately, when we're creating a database that we need to be able to query, search, and filter for lists or deliverables, we don't have the Gorilla system, the software system on our desktop. So we needed to take all the concepts that Bill and Bill Good Marketing have taught us over the years and implement it in our own software and our own CRM. And most CRM systems have the ability to customize a database for searchable fields. So in our firm, we just use something called custom tags. And then I can customize, I can add as many and as much detail as I want. For example, I could have, instead of wine, I could have red wine, white wine. I could be as specific as I want when it comes to creating these custom tags. I can have as many of them as I want. And then I literally take the information on the questionnaire and mark the client's CRM record with these interest fields so that later I can search for them. And ultimately, when you take the concept of client segmentation and then you merge that with a database that can allow you to filter for certain types of results, in this case, the interest, an advisor can say, hey, look, give me a list of every AAA client that has an interest in the Flyers, Philadelphia Flyers, because I have a VIP suite for the playoffs. Now, the Flyers haven't made the playoffs in 7 years, so we've saved a few bucks on that. But seriously, the idea that we've created a database that we can simply search easily for interests has allowed us to execute on, ultimately our goal is to, whether it's gifting or have events, to create lists of people that would be most likely to respond in a positive fashion, whether, hey, I got a gift that I was interested in, or I was invited to an event that I'd like to attend.
I love that. And it's interesting. When I first joined Bill Good Marketing 18 years ago, my very first job here was actually as what Bill called a remote computer operator. My job was to help advisors maintain their CRM, ensure data was getting into their database and was being used. And one of the things that I learned, quickly on the job was that a lot of times advisors would learn some really interesting information, but it would be just buried in notes. Or buried in a spreadsheet or what have you. And as a result, it got buried, it got lost, it wasn't retrieved. So I think it's really critical, even as simple as it may seem, that everyone here, when you learn something about your clients and your prospects, you are organizing in the way Drew's talking about. You can, like, as soon as this call is over, go into your CRM, bring up any client and see, as far as what their passions are, their favorite activities, their favorite food, their alma mater, their favorite sports teams, whatever. Is that somewhere where it is highlighted, is easy to see, or is it buried somewhere in the notes or in a form or what have you? Because there's a big distinction between the two. One will not get used, the other will get used. So again, I think is a simple but very key point. Now, I mentioned using the data because that's the next phase, isn't it? It's one thing to know it, another thing to record it, but how do you use it? And I think this is really the magic of what you guys are doing. So, talk to us about how you are then using the information you're learning, the interests you're learning from this campaign to deepen relationships and turn clients into raving fans.
So the story of the genesis of the Find the Money campaign, which is how can we create a campaign that will pay for itself, right? That as advisors, we don't mind spending money. We just don't like wasting money, right? So I want to invest my money and get a return on it. And the sooner and the bigger the return, the better, right? Um, the campaign itself was very profitable. And it was profitable in a way, in a short term, immediate result, and a more intermediate term and longer term result. So the short term result was we send all these boxes out, we get all these campaign or these questionnaires back, and the first thing we do is confirm, say, hey, thank you so much for sending this back. I didn't know you were a Flyers fan, or I didn't know you like gardening, or I didn't know you like wine. That's great. We'll make sure that the next time we have a gardening event or a wine tasting event or a Flyers game or whatever it is, we'll make sure to keep you in mind. And one conversation I had, it was very timely. It was just, client, hey, how's everything? Thanks for returning the questionnaire. How's everything going? And she's like, well, everything's good, but my husband's going into surgery tomorrow. I'm like, oh, what's he at? He's having knee surgery. I said, oh, okay. And he's like, yeah. She's like, yeah, hopefully everything will go well, but he's a little concerned because he's not going to be able to work. So we immediately went to the questionnaire, right? And this is the CEO that I mentioned. And we didn't have much of a relationship with her husband other than a quick conversation here or there. And so we went and we pulled out his questionnaire and we saw that he was interested in wine and we saw that he was interested in books and espionage books, right? So this is in our morning meeting. Erik, he says, I'll go find an espionage book on Amazon. And we were looking at all these books and we picked one out and then we ordered it. So it was there the next day, which was when he was having surgery. And I saw wine. We have a branded wine from my favorite winemaker in Napa, an awesome Cabernet, right? So we got another box and we sent a get well card and we said, here's a book we hope you enjoy reading and a glass of wine to help you through PT or whatever the reference was to his recovery. Well, the next day he emailed us back and said, wow, that was unbelievable. I haven't been able to read in 20 years. And I was thinking about, I'll be able to read. And here you guys sent me a book. This book was on my list. That was awesome, right? And oh, by the way, this wine's going to be great. I can tell. And then his wife calls us up afterwards and said, Dave told me what you did. Thank you. That was awesome. And oh, by the way, I got some money laying around, and now that I'm thinking about it, would you want to come over? Should I send you? I said, no, I'll come out and I'll come and say hi. I haven't seen you in a while. I drove by her office and said hello, and she gave me a check. I didn't even look at it. Gave it to Erik, and he says, Dad, you realize that she just gave you a $2 million check? I'm like, oh, wow, that's cool. So that was like, we had multiple things like that happen. Erik has another story about another way we connected too, which is meaningful as a direct result of this campaign.
And yeah, that's a great story. And there's so many like it through this campaign. And I think the best part about the find the money, find the interest is you don't know where it's going to come from.
Mhm.
And the one day I was in the office, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. And, I introduced myself and figured out it was the wife of a client who we didn't have a relationship with. And she said, "Hey, did you mean to send us something in, via FedEx? We got a box, and when we received it, it was all torn up. We didn't know what was in it, so the FedEx driver must have taken it.
Mhm.
And, we resent the gift, made sure it got there safely. But, in that follow up, she had mentioned that she had an IRA that, she worked another job and, kind of forgot about it and, wanted us to take care of it. And when we got the statement and, rolled in the money, it was $1 million IRA from a broken FedEx box through this campaign."
Wow, that's amazing. So, it sounds to me like what you guys are doing with this information is, you used the word before, Drew. You said wow moments. You're always on the lookout for wow moments. Can you give me any other examples of wow moments that you have found through this information and the interest that you're finding?
Well, I found out one client who was wheelchair bound was an Eagles fan, and he lived in Asheville, North Carolina. And again, called him up. Hey, I didn't know you were an Eagles fan. Oh yeah, I said, well, I have tickets if you'd ever like to go. Well, I'm in Carolina and I'm in a wheelchair. It's going to be hard for me to get for a game. I said, all right, thank you for sharing that. I'll let you know if we can work something out. So I immediately called my representative in the Eagles organization. They contacted the Carolina Panthers. We got special wheelchair accessible seating and premier seating level. And I invited him, I got tickets for him and his family. So the four of them were able to attend the game. And he hadn't been able to get to an Eagles game because he felt like that was overwhelming. He was absolutely blown away that we would like create this experience for him to be able to attend the Eagles. He brought his wife and her brother-in-law and somebody else, and they still talk about it. A couple years later, every time we talk about, at the end, hey, what do you think? Oh, the Eagles, yeah, that game you sent it to was so awesome. So there are there's many other kinds of things, but that's a real wow that came directly from a questionnaire that we were able to really make a difference in the way that the clients feel about us and just have a great experience for them.
That's awesome. Those stories are all so inspiring to me, and again, I love the phrase "a wow moment." I think that's probably one we're probably going to use a lot more here at Bill Good Marketing. We have a question coming in from Stephanie. This is a good question. She asks, "Are you sending this questionnaire? Or are you running this campaign to all of your clients or just higher tier clients?"
All clients. It was said to me during the actually, I said this to a group of advisors during the financial crisis. If you are unwilling to call your clients and be present for them in this time of crisis, they shouldn't be your clients. Well, you flip that around, and it's like, if I'm not going to take the time to be deeply interested and invested in our clients, in every one of them, they shouldn't be our clients. So, this by definition goes to every client, regardless of their spot in the segmentation.
Excellent. So, in addition to these client touches and these wow moments, you also use this data to, and you alluded to this earlier, put on incredible client events. So, let's talk a bit about that. Tell us about some of the events that you are uh, holding based off of the data you're gathering from this campaign.
Right. So the visual here is awesome because it kind of highlights different types of events. And so the picture on the upper left hand corner of the Eagles game, I just gave you an example there, right? That's a firm or an FA driven, not firm, I'm sorry, practice. Like Beyond Investing or the advisors are going to target a event. In the case of an Eagles game here, it's maybe two clients. Maybe they'll join us. Maybe we'll just send them. Um, it could be a sporting of a getting it. We've done this where you get a VIP box at the playoffs. That's always very popular. It's also expensive. Generally speaking, playoff boxes in Philadelphia are $10,000 per game. So that may not be in your budget, right? But we found if you target the right people, there is a return on investment there, right? The upper right-hand corner is an art exhibit, and the firm, a specific event we had was a participate in the Art Basel event, which is a premier art exhibit and exhibition in Miami every year, very high end. So we're able to, but that just frames the concept of harnessing the firm's events, and it could all the way down to a shredding event. And again, a shredding event, we is an example of it's not so much an interest-based event as using your database to fill. You're not going to send an invite to a shredding event to somebody not in the local market. So we're going to do a zip code search and we're just going to send our clients an invite that somebody might live within a 20-mile radius. But that represents for us firm-sponsored events and how we're going to leverage the firm. The lower left-hand corner with the golf, what we do is we partner with nonprofit organizations when they do fundraisers, and we're going to sponsor the event, and then we're going to invite our clients to participate in it. Sometimes the clients make direct contributions. We're there, we're interacting, we're helping our community-based nonprofits run successful campaigns. We're also combining our clients' interest, and typically we're going to pay for the clients. We're not asking them to pay for it, right? So they're going to be invited to an event that's paid for, but this represents partnering with community events, and there's a lot of really cool ones out there, whether it's bike races or Halloween contests. Some of our events are family-based, so children can attend. Definitely want to keep in mind young families with kids. They're not going to go out for wine tasting, but they may go out for an afternoon of pumpkin carving, right? So we want to be thoughtful around making sure these events are wide enough in scope that our full list of clients can participate. And finally, the concept of an educational event. It's a perfect opportunity. We actually did a cooking class. We had a chef show our clients how to cook Italian food, and then we brought a sommelier to show them how to pair Italian wine. And ultimately, part of it was an educational event. We pulled in how to successfully invest in international markets, and that was sponsored by a third-party investment management company. The concept there is they can take and participate in some of the cost of these to lower the cost of the advisor. And that the clients will benefit from this duality of education, pairing the financial and the interest. So it takes this whole concept of pairing both and keeping it together. So clients know they can go do their own wine tasting, right? They see an additional value in pairing some education around financial and wealth management issues. So that's another type of event that we hold as well.
I love, Drew, how you keep using the word pairing, and I think that's such a good one. I love how you're pairing a lot of times two different ideas together for maximum effect. You're pairing the idea of a client event with a community-based event. You're pairing the idea of an appreciation style event, a cooking class, with an educational event. Come learn how to cook international cuisine while learning about international markets. These are pretty unique ways that you're doing this. I think that's really cool. And I also think we have to remember one of the things that your questionnaire asked was not only what kinds of activities are you interested in, who are you interested in doing them with. And that's key, because with these events, you're not just doing wow moments for your clients. These are leading to referrals and introductions where you're creating wow moments for the next, group of people that you want to do business with, the people that they're bringing to these events with them, and that's such a neat way of approaching it.
Right, and
We have. Go ahead. I apologize.
No, we'll brand them as member guest events,
Mhm.
right? Or somebody say, "Hey, do I have to pay anything?" No, the price of admission is just bringing somebody with you,
Right.
right? And but it's not if somebody says, "Well, I don't have a guest, but I really want to attend." Well, then you're welcome to attend. But we're always suggesting that it's a great idea to bring somebody. Might be more fun, and it's a great way to introduce them to us in a very soft setting.
Absolutely. And one of the things the bill has always coached is, when you learn, you have a client who loves fishing, you learn who they like to go fishing with. You're putting on a fishing related event or a golf related event or what have you. And you invite them, hey, Bob, I know you love to golf or to fish with your buddy Frank. Why don't you bring him along? Well, of course, they're going to do that. They want to be spending time doing that thing with their golf buddy or their fishing buddy. So it's just such an effective way to such a natural way to bring in more referrals, more introductions, while deepening your relationship with clients. And it's one of my very favorite ways for advisors to grow. We have a couple questions coming in for you guys. First of all, we have a question for you, Drew, from James, and he asks: the custom tags that you mentioned, do those automatically merge over to Advisor Gateway? Do you have an answer
And
for that?
so we haven't seen the merger, and this would be on the proprietary system at our firm. We were told that they will port automatically. So the custom tags in the note field, we're told they're going to port over when they move everything. We've had a delay. Our new system is a Salesforce based system, very robust. The old legacy system you have to kind of fill around with to get it to do what you want. But we were told that they will automatically port over, so we're not going to lose that information.
Excellent. And now we have a question from Brent. This one may be best for you to Eric, for you to answer, but either one of you can chime in. He asks, "What is your budget for gift giving and events, especially on a percentage basis to your practice's annual revenue?" In other words, how are you guys paying for this? What is this costing?
So I can go over the
So
cost of this specific
yes,
event, and then Drew can get into the overview of gifting and during holidays. But this event, we did the numbers for roughly 100 households, and it ended up being around 12,000. So of that number, a big majority of that was the custom branded Yetis. So that was about 9,500, and getting our logo on there with all the different types and the discount ended up being about 9,500. And then you add some of the extra things like the custom card that we wrote the note on. That was, I think, 400. And then another big piece of the cost was actually sending those FedEx boxes overnight, which is roughly $15 a person. So, when you look at the overview, it's about $120 a household to be able to send these gifts out.
Excellent. And what about your overall budget, Drew, and how it accounts for, what portion of your budget is given over to this?
sure. So I'm going to say, like, I know for a fact I withdraw 2% of gross revenue as a function of to be able to apply applicable pre-tax expenses. And all these gifts fall in line with our firm's gifting limits and things of that nature, the events and all that. The idea that we do have multiple advisors in the practice can leverage some of the bigger events. So we're sharing these, but generally speaking, 2% is what I take out. But I do find myself spending another 1% out of pocket because, frankly, when I find something I want to invest in that I think I can get a return on, I'm just going to go out of pocket and do it, right? Whether I planned on it or not, I'm going to try it and I'm going to spend the money on it. And again, that's more of a in line with an extra percent. So if I would probably say I'm spending 3% of gross revenue on marketing.
Excellent. Thank you. Um, well, unfortunately, time has really flown. So we are almost out of time. But before we close off, I did want to make sure that you guys had a chance to talk a bit about the results from this campaign? I know sometimes advisors don't, love talking about, what they brought in and everything, but your results are so exciting, and I think it's the proof of why a campaign like this is so powerful and so effective at creating raving fans, and why that in turn is so effective at helping you grow. So talk a bit about what you've seen as a result, either directly from the campaign or largely attributable to the campaign.
Right. So the way I look at this is, especially from assets from clients that we got that were way over normal, right? So if we plan at the beginning of the year and say, hey, we think we can bring in $30 million, right? Or 20 million just from planning and organic growth. And we bring in 120 million. And it wasn't just because somebody gave us 100 million and then I got 20, right?
Sure.
This was multiple different clients that we had deepened our relationship with during the process over the last year or two, that ended up choosing us as their provider and sending us money, whether it was in many cases business sales or in one a couple cases inheritances, but most of the clients, especially the one with shows 50 million. This is a client that I mentioned that we gifted and had this wonderful experience with the book. And I know for a fact they work with 5 other investment professionals, right? And we won the mandate for that money.
Mhm.
And you ask yourself, look, was it because we manage money really well? Was it because we had a great financial plan? Was it because we deliver excellent client service? I assumed all our competitors do that as well, right? We don't have any secret sauce when it comes to investment results, right? We have good investment results, but nothing that would stand out and say, hey, we're so far head and shoulders above our competition that we're winning mandates because of our investment results. So you ask yourself, well, why did we win? I attribute the fact of doing all of it, combining it, right? And really getting to a level of, hey, clients determine they really care about us, right? And they've done a good job with investments and they have a good plan and they're very responsive with client service. And then you put that extra layer on, and we were able to have a really good year in growth. And it's continued into this year, which has really leveraged us to the next, right? So we're just going to be doing more of these things and more focused. And to your point, may run the Find the Interest campaign again in another format to try to continue the momentum and gain additional leverage.
That's amazing and so well deserved, Drew. We are all so happy to see the kind of success that you guys have been getting over the last year or two. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Um, I'd love to keep talking even more about this campaign, but we are just about out of time. So I want to make sure that I give you guys what was promised at the beginning, and that, of course, is the goodie bag. As a reminder, this goodie bag contains 2 different resources. It contains a special guidebook on how to run more effective client events, so you can do what Drew and Erik are doing with all the many amazing events that they're holding. And then it contains the actual letter and questionnaire that they talked about earlier in the call. So you can take that, it's exactly as they wrote it, but you can customize it however you want, and then run this campaign with your clients. I strongly recommend that you do that. To get either of these, or to get both of these documents, all we ask is that you fill out a quick report card. Let us know what you took from this, what we can do better in the future, what you'd like to learn on upcoming webinars, and then that'll take you immediately to the goodie bag with these resources. All you have to do to fill out that report card and get your goodies is either scan the QR code on your screen or visit bgmtips.com/raving. And I'll leave this up just for one more minute so you guys can all access that. Ultimately, though, I hope everyone on this call took as much from this as I did. I cannot recommend more strongly that you take the letter and the questionnaire that Drew and Erik are sharing with you, Send it out to all of your clients. You can even send it out to your strategic partners and your prospects as well if you want to. Many advisors do that kind of a thing. When you get responses back, enter them into your CRM. Make sure you're tracking them in a manner like Drew mentioned, and then use them to create those wow moments, those touches with clients that lead to those heartfelt exchanges like he talked about, or that Erik talked about, and then use them to create client events and be able to bring in your client guests and get to know them. There's so many ways that you can use the information that you will gather from this campaign. But ultimately, go out, find the interests, track the interests, use the interests. It is the most simple way, and thus the best way, to turn your clients into raving fans and to continue seeing the kind of growth that Drew and Erik are seeing. So with that said, both of you, thank you guys so much for taking the time and joining us today. Is there anything else you'd like to add or share before we close out?
Just a Bill Good favorite. Thank you very much for having us.
Excellent. One last point before I let you go. If you would like to watch any of our previous webinars, we do these at least once a month. We have a new YouTube page that contains a plethora of our recent webinars. So please go and visit that, subscribe to our new YouTube channel. You can see all those webinars. And then again, if you haven't gotten the report card, go and fill that out and get your goodies, and we'll see you on the next call. So from everyone here at Bill Good Marketing and on behalf of Drew and Erik, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.